everyone. Welcome to ReThink the Road with our unique challenges and games. We take our entrepreneurs on a trip down memory lane and make them rethink the road that got them where they are. Today we have with us the founder of Finimize, Max Rofagha. He completed his master's in economics and international relations from University of St. Andrews. Co-founded an e-commerce startup with 200 employees and sold it in 2015. He also mentors at Techstars and Startup Bootcamp and was named one of the Forbes 30 under 30 for 2016. Thank you so much, Max, for being part of ReThink the Road. Is there anything else that you would like to mention about yourself?
No, I think that did a pretty good job on a high level. Thank you for having me.
Perfect. I guess we can dive straight into it.
I like that.
Okay, so 3, 2, 1.
Finimize is a modern financial information platform and community. Hashtag power to the retail investor, fist emoji.
That was 13 seconds, so perfect. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think that the interesting part about Finimize is how it was built. So I think if you could go more into detail about how the idea came about and how it was so personal to you.
Essentially what happened was I was in my mid to late 20s and I was saving up money every month by just taking money from my salary and putting it onto a savings account. And I did that for multiple months. And I woke up one day and I realized that I've built up saving, which was fantastic news. But my immediate follow-up question was, what do I do with those savings? And I was really unsure. And when I went to go see a financial advisor, I noticed that although it was a very pleasant experience, that it was ultimately a sales pitch for their financial products rather than them genuinely wanting to help me, and knew straight away that that wasn't the right solution for me, and went back home and started to inform and educate myself as much as I could on the investing topics, and found it really difficult to wrap my head around it, even though, as you know, I studied economics. And in the evenings, then I would go meet friends who were working in the finance space, and I would bombard them with all the questions that I had. And at the same time, I kept bumping into people who were in the same boat as I was. So they were lacking the finance knowledge to help them invest their savings. But they didn't have this community around them that I had of people who could help empower them to make the right decisions. And that was really the genesis moment for Finimize, where I started to embark on this mission where I want to empower people to become their own financial advisors by giving them access to information and tools to make them smarter investors.
Yeah, definitely. I think that problem is, I personally face that, given that I've just started a job and I'm trying to save. I think it's difficult to see where to invest or where to, how to actually save. And I think that tools like this really is beneficial. So the first one is, when you began, did you think that you would build the world's largest investing community of over 1 million people across 6 continents and 40 cities in just 4 to 5 years?
No is the answer. My hunch is that for most of the questions, my answer is going to be no. No, I mean, I think when it comes to community, I think there's a couple of points. I think, first of all, that was never the plan. It happened very organically. And then secondly, I think the way I think about it is we didn't actually start the community started itself. And what we did is we laid the seeds, the foundation for the community to get started. And we did certain things, like we really cared about how we treated our first users. We tried to treat them as VIPs, etc., to really make it feel like this has the potential to become a community. But the community really started when people started reaching out to us and started saying, "Hey, can I organize meetups all over the world?" And all we did was just say yes. and that's then what started it.
So then, like, what was the initial plan with Finimize?
The initial plan was always, so the mission was always the same. So the mission has always been, we want to empower people to become their own financial advisors. And so we had multiple sort of products or product ideas that we were exploring in the early days. I think we took a fairly unconventional approach in the sense that we always had the newsletter. We always were growing the newsletter and we're expanding our reach, but we were experimenting with products as we were going along. So we tested a couple of other products, all with the premise: can we help you make smarter financial decisions? And some worked, some didn't work, and we kind of iterated our way to where we are today, always having alongside the newsletter and then also later on the community that naturally emerged.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting that the community aspect wasn't part of your plan, because I feel nowadays majority of companies, what they want to do is try and build a community around their brand or their company, and it's become such an integral part of just building a business.
Yeah. Well, I think I wonder if you can actually plan it. I feel like there has to be a certain spark in the universe that happens to kickstart all of that. So I don't know. I've yet to see somebody sort of intentionally build a community that works.
Yes, definitely. I agree with that. So the next one is, I guess, like a two-parter. So yeah, as you mentioned, the newsletter, Finimize started with a daily newsletter that explained what was happening in the world of finance in 3 minutes without any jargon, which I think is an incredible thing, because finance without jargon can be difficult. And but now you also have an app where you can read user-generated reviews on a range of financial products. So was this part of the original plan to have like an app at some point? And your app also hit multiple achievements like App of the Day in Apple App Store in 2019. The app also was #1 finance app in 41 countries around the world. So was this also something that you had in mind in terms of like a goal to hit, or was it all very organic?
So our app, again, had multiple iterations. We actually don't have user-generated reviews in there at this point. Our app today is sort of an extension of our free offering. So the free offering is the newsletter, and then our app is the premium offering as of today. And the way that came about was we basically kept looking at what are some of the customer feedbacks that we're getting on the newsletter, and the #1 thing was always, we want to have more content. And so we put our heads together and we came up with a product that would give our users more content. And we knew that in a mobile first generation, it had to be a mobile app. And we knew that with the rise of audio, we had to also provide audio content. And so today in the app, you get investing insights, you get the daily brief, you get guides on multiple topics. You get a whole range of content available in text and in audio. And it was really, I think, following the demand that we saw from our users. That's how we started getting into the apps.
Yeah, that's another key point of businesses these days, right? Like looking into what the customer actually wants and like catering to their needs more specifically. It's interesting to actually see how like Finimize was built and how like the community aspect is actually so important in like the growth of Finimize. You also founded another successful company before Finimize and was selling it part of the plan.
Yeah, I would say so. At the beginning, we started the company. I think it was very clear that we're not going to do this forever. It was also not the kind of thing that we wanted to sell after 2 years. So we did spend a decent amount of time with it. But yeah, it was, I think the idea was that at some stage we were going to sell it. Yeah.
Okay. Just like in terms of other founders there, like what was the feeling, or if there was any, in terms of when you realized that it was like either like time to move on from like the company that you started, or like, yeah, like when it was the right time to sell, like how was that decision made?
I mean, I think at the end of the day, if you get a party that's interested in acquiring you, then you have a think about it, if you're interested. And I think we've reached a point at that time where we had pretty large scale. So it was a local e-commerce business based out of Switzerland, in Zurich, and we were a very dominant player in the Swiss market, but outside of Switzerland, there was nothing that we could do, or that we wanted to do rather. And at that point, we've reached a scale where we had very, very high awareness, and it became a question of, you know, where do we want to take this? And it became clear that this was going to be much more now around operational efficiency and increasing profits and all these things, rather than like building new products. And I think that felt like a good time to hand that over to a professional management team.
Okay, yeah. That's the end of expected and unexpected. And yeah, it was definitely surprising to see that the Finimize bits or unexpected are not part of the plan. So yeah, that's interesting to see how, like, once you start, like how the company completely changes in terms of like how you, I guess, envisioned it initially. So
yeah, I think the way I think about this is like, because I see how it also can come across as surprising. I think the way I think about it is you need to have a mission that's very, very clear, and you hold on to the mission, and that's nothing that can be changed. How you get there, I think you have to be really, really flexible and agile, and that's how we approached it, right? So like the end game was set in stone. How we get there was a way of iterations, listening to the customers, etc. So other companies do it differently. For us, that's how it worked.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think having that like set mission in mind is so important, just so that like you don't get swayed throughout your journey. So yeah, and I think like it's quite evident like throughout your thing of how like y'all want to stick with the idea that the world can like survive, I guess, where everyone becomes their own financial advisor. So just like seeing that, and I think it like it's, I guess, gives everyone like a chance to believe in the fact that they can be more responsible about their own finances and like invest and grow them, and you don't necessarily need to have either a finance or economics degree to do so. So I think for everyone that is in like their 20s and just starting out, it's inspiring to see that this is a possibility. All
right, I think I can come up with something. So I guess
okay,
I'll just frame them all as a challenge, and then you have to guess which one is correct.
Yeah.
So challenge number one is we had a lot of we have a lot of competition that is trying to take away from our market share. Challenge number two is we're struggling to find the best people for the jobs that we're trying to hire. And challenge number 3 is educating the customer on the value proposition in a way that they appreciate the product.
Oh, I would say maybe challenge number 2, like finding people that are best fit for the job.
So I think that's so the answer is number 3.
Okay.
I think number 2 is sort of correct, sort of incorrect. Basically, I think we have found the best people for the roles. So like from that point of view, it's a lie, but it is 100% a challenge to continue to find good people. It's a bit of a hybrid. I was struggling with that one. I think number 3 for us is like, I think in finance, there's a lot of behavioral challenges, sort of if you think about like behavioral finance, etc. Where people have things like confirmation bias, recency bias, etc. And especially now in the last couple of months, there's been a lot of noise around certain activities or like certain anecdotes where people can basically turn $1,000 into $100,000 by investing into an altcoin. And I think the challenge becomes, you know, how do you educate the end consumer that there's a whole world out there in terms of processes and frameworks and things, how to approach finance that we're trying to convey to you, when, you know, somebody has basically put a chip onto the roulette table and that worked out, right? Like it becomes very difficult to argue until that person places the next chip and then loses it all. And so I think that's been something where, you know, on the one side, we obviously want to make sure that we embrace everything that's happening and that we lean into the conversation. On the other side, we also want to make sure that we don't just blindly follow trends. So I would say that's a constant balancing act that we're facing.
Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting to see, like, as a challenge, because I would also assume that people that are coming to like Finimize would like understand the fact that it's not based on luck in terms of investing and
exactly. And I think there's a certain element of like confirmation bias and like post rationalization where you invest into, for example, a specific coin and it takes off, and then you tell yourself, yeah, I mean, I picked this one, I did the research properly, etc. But likely, in reality, it was luck.
So, are you ready for that?
Yes.
Okay, so the first one is, how many all-nighters did you pull in your first year of Finimize?
I guess depends on how you do, what's an all-nighter, like literally not sleeping at all. Probably 0. I haven't done that since university. Or actually, probably since my first company. But a lot of very late nights, for sure. Yeah.
Did you ever question whether it was worth it?
Yeah, I mean, every once in a while you ask yourself, is it worth it? Is it worth the stress and the effort? But then, you know, there's also, it's the classic roller coaster ride that a lot of people always describe, you know, like one day can be absolutely amazing, the next day can feel absolutely crap. And so it's, as long as it feels like the roller coaster is overall going up and sometimes it bumps down, I think it's heading in the right direction.
Yes, Uh, when did you make your first profit?
As a company?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't disclose that.
Okay. One word to describe your emotion when you reach the community of 1 million people.
I would say excitement for what we achieved, but even more excitement for what we want to still achieve.
Yeah. Emotion when you first fired someone.
Well, I first fired someone at my previous company, and obviously disappointment on multiple levels.
Weirdest place you've worked from?
I've worked from a lot of different places during this whole COVID experience. I would probably say somewhere remote in a mountain village in the Alps.
That sounds fun. When do you plan to retire, if you do plan to retire?
I don't think I will ever really retire. I think I enjoy working. So I don't have a number there.
What is your biggest weakness?
I'm not sure what my one biggest weakness is. I would say at the end of the day, if you're an entrepreneur, I think you always have a little bit of shiny new thing syndrome. So a new idea, etc., is always super exciting.
Yeah.
And I think just staying hyper focused and making sure that you're not getting distracted, I think, is always one of those things that I try to look out for.
Yeah. How many enemies did you make in the process?
I'm not aware of any. I hope not.
That's good. Which hobby of yours did Finimize kill?
I think before I started Finimize, I was really into endurance sports like triathlons, etc., and it requires a lot of time, specifically cycling, and somehow I haven't been able to make time for it, but probably also down to time management. So I'm sure if I really wanted to do it, I could make it work.
Then books or podcasts?
Loads. I don't think I have one. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to things like this with interesting interviews of entrepreneurs. I read a lot of books around interesting business people, interesting characters, biographies. So it's probably a genre here rather than a specific book.
Yeah. Okay. So an iPad or a notebook?
I try to have a notebook. I feel like actually I have it here. You can't see. Yeah, I feel like a notebook is good because it helps you get less distracted.
Yeah. And what's your favorite social media?
Twitter.
Okay. And that concludes our final segment. We'd like to thank you so much for giving us your time, and thank you for being a great guest as well. Is there any motivational quote or learning you'd like to leave the audience with?
I think we touched on this a little bit with the whole plan for Finimize. I think at the end of the day, I think if you have a really clear plan of where you want to go, then go with the flow and see what different paths might take you there. And I think don't get too hung up on one specific path, whether that's in building a company or whether that's your career. I would always try to have an open mind. Yes,
thank you. Yeah, that definitely resonated with me as well. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And it's definitely an important learning overall.